Hey everyone, welcome back to ACT Math Quick Hits, where you can make this one small change and watch a video a day. Doesn't cost you any money, only costs you a little bit of time, and you're going to help improve your ACT math score. There's a rundown of the math section of the ACT. Let's get back into it for today. Maybe. Ah. Alright, so we're getting there, right? We can see how we use the index to jump to any problem that we want, right? We're up to 36 today. Alright, there we go. Okay, so today's problem is a behemoth, right? So it gives us a piecewise function, and it gives us two of them, right? And there's two pieces for each of them, right? So we basically have four different functions here. I'm not going to read through all those things, but they give us a function, and then they give us what we call a restriction on a domain, like a restriction on what our inputs could be, which obviously restricts what our outputs can be. And then ultimately what they want us to do is they want us to find the value of f of g of -1. Right, so we have piecewise functions, and then the question here is asking for a composition of functions, meaning it wants us to evaluate the g function at -1, figure out what that value is, and then use that value as an input to put into the f function. So tons of stuff happening in this problem here. We can use Desmos. It's a little bit clunky to put this stuff into Desmos because we have to understand how to do the restriction on the domain, and it's not necessarily going to help us tons. It will get us there. The algebraic approach, I think, is much easier and quicker for this one. Obviously, but I'm an algebra teacher. So let's take a look at how we would do this on Desmos, and then we'll see how we do it algebraically. So if we're going to be able to put this function in with those restrictions, there's a few, I like to call them programming things we have to do with Desmos. So first of all, it's just annoying to put in f of x. So you could just put in a y. It doesn't really matter. But I'm gonna follow what the test shows us, right? So I have f of x equals the opposite of x squared, right? And so there's a parabola, but it gives us a restriction for x values that are less than 0. So if we're going to put that restriction in, we have to grab this curly bracket here, and then we can put that restriction in. So x values less than 0. And then Desmos, will automatically do those restrictions. I guess I could close this curly bracket. See if it closes. Nope, it wanted me to do a new one. There we go, close. I guess I don't have to close it, but like I said, kind of good practice is to close it. So there's our first piece of a graph, right, with that restriction on the domain. So now I'm going to do the next one. So again, same deal. F. I don't know, I give you a capital F there. That's kind of odd. I don't like that. Go back to this. There we go. Lowercase f. And then, right, I got to toggle back and forth between the numbers and letters. It's annoying. So we have 1 minus x. So same deal. If I want to put in the restriction on the domain, go grab that curly bracket, and then x is greater than or equal to 0. So I said I don't have to close the curly bracket. I'll leave it open this time, just less keystrokes. And then so notice it gave me this graph with its restriction, right? So the f graph has this, this black part that curves down, and then this red part that's a linear equation, a line that is falling as we go left to right. All right, so let's just keep going, right? So now we're going to put the g function in. So g of x equals, all right, so now we have an absolute value piece. Yikes. So we have to go into function and find our absolute value. I don't remember where it's at, so let's just keep looking. For some reason, I want to say it's like at the bottom, and it is not. Dang it. Oh, actually, don't have to go into functions. There it is right there, right? Absolute value of x, close absolute value, plus 7. So, right, it doesn't look like it's there. Let's zoom out a little bit just so we can see it. Right, there's the graph. The absolute value always gives us a V-shaped graph. Let's put in the restriction, x value less than or equal to -1. Okay, so there's the restriction. All right, finally, putting in our last function, x minus 3. So there it is, green on there, but we need our restriction, curly bracket, x values greater than -1. All right. Whew. What a mess, right? So Look how much time we spent just putting these functions in, and that doesn't even answer the question for us. So in all honesty, this would be one of these questions that I would skip as I was taking the ACT, and then I would come back to it at the very end. Just because look how much time it took us to do this, right? We want to make sure that we have enough time to answer some of those quicker, faster questions, and then we can come back to this at the end if we have enough time, right? And if we're running out of time at the end, then we can just guess, right? Like if there's a few seconds left and it's about to close the test, right? Just pick one of those answer choices and guess. Like I said, because this question is taking so much time. All right, so we have all the functions in. The first thing we need to do is we need to evaluate that innermost piece, so that g of -1. So let's actually see what happens if we just do g of -1. Let's see, Desmos might actually know. It doesn't, right? So I thought it might know based upon those restrictions where we could do that evaluation of -1, but it does not know, right? Okay, so we're going to actually have to figure that out, or figure this piece out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to graph a line of x equals -1, right? And so that is putting a -1 into my function. And again, I want to evaluate it where the g function is. So I'm going to turn off those f functions just because those are going to be in my way and it's going to make it harder to see what I'm doing. Okay, so x equals -1. Notice that it touches that that black graph, that black line, or dark blue. I can't tell, it looks about the same. So an x value of -1 gives us an output value of 8. But if I try to get it to with the green line, right, like notice Desmos doesn't do the calculation for me, right? With this one, I just kind of click close to it and it gives me an ordered pair. Boom, I have it. But if I try to do that with the green one, right, it doesn't give it to me, and I have to like drag this around and try to get it on there. Well, the reason is we told Desmos that the green graph only exists for values that are bigger than -1. So -1 isn't included on the green graph. You know, -0.9999999 would be, but -1 is not. So Desmos is at least, you know, telling us that, oh, well, we can't use that green graph to evaluate g of -1 because you restricted the domain. So this tells me right here that if I put -1 into the g function, then I get an output value of 8. So now what the question then wants me to do, let's jump out of this and then let's do a little drawing here. Now that we found out what g of -1 is, right, so g of -1 was equal to +8. What it wants us to now do, right, is put that into the f function. So we want to evaluate the f function at +8 and find the output for it. So that's what that composition of function means, is it means evaluate the g function first, get some value, and then use that value as an input for the other function. Whew, that's hard to say. I'm sure hard to comprehend as well. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do f of 8. So I'm going to go back into my Desmos. Luckily they didn't close out. The earlier versions, if you closed out of Desmos, it erased all of your work. So hopefully that stays the same. So I'm going to turn off my g functions, and I'm going to turn on my f functions, and now I'm going to do an evaluation at 8. So obviously I don't see it because 8 is a little bit further away. And this one's a little bit more straightforward because, right, it only intersects the f function on that red line, right, and gives us that value of -7. So there we have it. After doing g of -1, we got a value of 8, and then we do f of 8, and that gives us a value of -7. So our correct answer is choice B. This is a long video today, everyone, just because of the complexity of the problem. But like I said, it gave us that opportunity to talk about a strategy where this would be a good problem to skip until the end. Make sure you have enough time to do it, because you don't want to, miss out on doing some of those faster, easier questions because you spend 10 minutes on this question here.